I personally struggled to gain weight on my bulking and muscle gain journey for a very long time at the start. However, when I knew these steps and when I followed these steps, I cracked the code, right? And in this video, I'm going to break down these four very simple steps, right, to how you can sort of escape and break free from any weight gain or muscle gain struggles, and you can start making the progress you truly want to see. But before we get into that, let me just introduce myself to you guys if you don't know me already. So my name is Ryan, I'm 20 years old, and over the past 4 years I have gained over 27 kilos of lean mass, and I'm on a mission to help thousands of men do the exact same thing. But without further ado, I'm so excited to present these steps to you because I genuinely think that if you implement these into your day to day, it can help a shit ton, right? So without further ado, let's get into today's video and the first step, right? So the first step is not necessarily what you may think, right? But it's so simple to the point where it's overlooked, in my opinion, right? So step number one is actually know how weight gain works, right? So many people stuff their faces silly thinking that if they eat until they're full or if they eat until they feel sick, that they're going to magically gain weight. However, my friend, that is not what happens, right? And if you actually know how weight gain works, then you can sort of put the correct practices into action. And if as consistent as you may be, if you're doing the wrong things and you're not going to get the right results, right? However, if you do the right things and put them into practice, you're going to get the right results. And in order to do that originally, you need to actually know how the whole thing works, right? You don't want to start running a business before you know how how it works, right? So yeah, that's step number one. You actually got to know how weight gain works, and I'm going to break this down and make it really simple for you guys, right? So we control our weight through diet, right? So depending on how much we eat, we can either gain weight, we can maintain weight, and we can lose weight, right? And what this is based on is our maintenance calories, right? So every single human, me, you, the guy next door, the junkie on the street next to yours, I don't know, right? Everyone has a maintenance calories. If you don't necessarily know what your maintenance calories is, it basically just refers to the amount of calories you have to eat every day in order to stay and maintain your weight you are right now, right? So for example, if you're currently weighing 72 kilos, you would have a maintenance of, I don't know, let's say 2000. And if you ate 2000 calories every day, you would stay at 72 kilos. And I'm not saying that's your maintenance because I don't think, I'm not sure, right? I just made up a number. But you get the point. If you eat a certain amount of calories every day, you will stay at the same weight, right? And the reason this is because our maintenance calories is based on how many calories leaves our body every day. So how many calories we burn naturally day to day, right? If you didn't know already, our body, regardless whether we're resting or whether we're doing physical activity, is burning calories, right? And our maintenance calories is based on the amount that leaves our body naturally, right? So person X who weighs 72 kilos and has a 2000 calorie maintenance, their maintenance calories is 2000 because 2000 also leaves their body, right? So it sort of balances it out. If 2000 calories leaves your body and you and 2000 calories comes into your body, then you're inevitably going to stay at the same weight, right? So how our weight fluctuates and whether we go up or down in weight basically is determined on how we eat around this maintenance calories, right? So if we eat less than we burn, right? So we burn this amount, so this amount leaves our body, but we consume this amount, so we consume less that left our body, then there's a bit of a gap here, right? And because we've consumed less than the amount that's left our body, we are going to inevitably drop weight. And that is what is called, my friend, a calorie deficit, right? So when you eat slightly less calories on your maintenance, which is going to help you drop body fat and hopefully keep muscle, right? However, that is not, both of those isn't how we gain weight, right? How we gain weight is eating in what is called a calorie surplus, right? If you don't know what the textbook definition of surplus is, it basically just refers to like something that is excess, right? You've got some stuff left over, right? And in this situation, in order to gain weight, we have to eat in this calorie surplus. So we basically have to have calories left over in our body, right? And what I mean by this, so let's go back to that 2000 calorie example. So if you eat 2000 calories, you would stay at the same weight. However, we want to gain weight, right? So we need to eat in a surplus, meaning we need to eat in excess to the amount that leaves our body, and we need to consume more than the amount that leaves our body in a day, right? So let's say our maintenance is 2000 calories, right? We have to eat around 2,350 to 2,500 at the absolute most. And because we have a surplus in calories and we have an excess amount that's sort of like left over, then that is going to be put towards weight and muscle gain, right? We can't gain weight without eating sufficient calories, right? You may be feeling full, you may be eating until you're sick. However, that does not mean you are eating that amount of calories, right? For all you know, you could have 1,000 calories left by the point you feel sick, right? So that's basically how weight gain works, and those extra calories go towards weight and muscle gain. And if you don't have those extra calories, there'll be none to go towards the weight and the muscle gain, because um weight and muscle gain isn't the body's priority, right? The body's priority is to look after our immune system and our daily bodily functions, right? So if we don't eat in this calorie surplus, then we're not going to have the calories left over, which can be delegated towards gaining muscle, right? Because all of the other calories that lead up to the maintenance are delegated towards looking after our immune system and making sure that we're operating functionally day to day, right? So we must eat in this calorie surplus. We must eat more than the amount that leaves our body every day, right? So that is how weight gain works, and that is how we sort of like control our weight, right? And it's all through diet, right? It's all through diet. So that's one thing, and that is step one. So now we have step one out the way, let's move on to step two. So step number two is finding out two things, right? I want you to find out your maintenance calories, and I want you to find out what your calorie surplus is, right? And although our maintenance calories won't help us gain weight, scientifically, I will get onto why we need that in just a second. But for now, I want you to find these two numbers, right? And in order to do this, I have left a calorie calculator for you guys in the top link in the description. All you'll want to do is basically click on it, fill out the boxes. So it's going to ask you for your age, your gender, your height, your weight, and your activity level, right? So if you go to the gym 4 times a week, pick 4 times a week, right? Straightforward, very, very simple stuff. And then what you want to do is click calculate, right? And then the very top number that comes up after you click calculate, you'll see it says maintain weight, right? I want you to note that number down, because that is your maintenance calories. That is the amount of calories you need to eat day to day to stay at the same weight. And in a second, I will explain why we need that. However, we haven't found our surplus yet. So what you need to do is, under the numbers that have just come up, you will see that there is a option or a little line highlighted in blue saying show info for weight gain. You basically want to click that, and then the info for the calorie surplus will come up, right? And the perfect calorie surplus, in my opinion, the number that should help you gain weight, is where it says weight gain 0.5 kilos a week, right? That's not too much, that's not too little. I think that is slap bang in the middle and absolutely perfect for us, right? So what I want you to do is write those two numbers down on a bit of paper, on your notes on your phone, or on a computer. Just note them down and do not lose them, right? So now we have the amount of calories you need to eat in order to be in a surplus, and therefore have enough calories in order to gain weight and muscle, right? We also found out your maintenance, right? And even though that doesn't contribute towards weight gain, why maintenance, right? So first of all, I just want to say, your maintenance at the very start of your gym journey, right? If you're eating at maintenance on day one, it can actually help you gain weight. And the reason is because if you're not used to eating lots of food, then, and if you're eating less than that right now, then because you've increased the calories and you start to eat at maintenance, you will still gain weight, right? Because your body's not used to it, and it's consuming more calories. Therefore, if you do consume your maintenance at the start, and if you are were originally eating less calories, then because you've increased them, you're still going to increase in weight, right? However, we want to obviously eat in a calorie surplus. So why maintenance, right? And now moving on to step 3. The reason why we want our maintenance is because we need to slowly build things up, right? If you are struggling to gain weight for a long time, and personally I did as well, obviously, step 3 is how I cracked the code, right? So many people go from they don't know step 1, they don't know how weight gain works. So many people sort of do half of step 2, they find out what their surplus is, they skip step 3, and then they go straight to step 4, which is the calorie surplus, right? But step 3 is the most important step, right? Skipping step 3 is like trying to go from one side of the bridge to the other without there being a road to connect the two sides, right? You're just going to fall in the river or fall whatever the bridge was meant to be over, right? You're not going to get to where you want to be, you're not going to gain weight, and you're going to carry on struggling and come back to videos like this in the future, right? So one of the biggest mistakes that many men make when they try to gain weight, when they try to gain muscle, when they're trying to eat and, eating a surplus, right? They rush straight into things, right? They don't even consider the fact that they would have been eating maybe 1,500 calories, for example, and they just double that and go straight to 3,000, right? How do you think that's going to go? You're obviously going to move one step forward and two steps back because you haven't sort of trained yourself to get used to that. It's like, when footballers, professional footballers or professional athletes, they have what's called a pre-season, right? That pre-season is to slowly warm them back into training and to slowly increase their fitness, so when the start of the season comes, they can play a full 90 minutes of whatever it is, football, or they can play a full match of tennis or rugby again, right? If they didn't have this pre-season and they went straight into the 90 minutes of football, they would be huffing and puffing by probably minute 40, right? And that is obviously not what we want. And in this situation, it's like you, as I just said, doubling your calories and not warming yourself up. And, on day 3 of eating double the calories you were before, you're going to feel pretty fucked, right? And because you haven't sort of warmed up to it, you're just going to come crashing down 2 steps back, right? So making sure you slowly build things up is so important, right? So I've got a couple of action steps that will help you basically slowly build things up, right? So aspect number 1 of slowly building things up is that this phase should last you anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, right? This should be enough time in order to help you increase your appetite, get used to eating more food, and just get into a consistent rhythm, right? 2 to 4 weeks, that should be perfect. I'll probably imagine if you're really struggling right now, probably on the longer side, so 3 to 4. However, by any means, just make sure you train yourself up and you slowly build things up, right? So step 1, right, in this 2 to 4 week period is eating at your maintenance calories first. As I just said, don't go one step forward and 2 steps back by eating in a surplus. We want to keep going one step forward each time, right? And in order to take your first step and not go 2 steps back, we need to start eating at our maintenance calories and get confident at that first, all right? Or around the maintenance calories, right? For example, if you found that your maintenance calories is 2,000 and you are on 1,000 calories a day on average, for example, you may not be, it's just an example, then instead of going straight to maintenance, because yet again, that's a very big jump, you want to slowly build things up, right? And work towards eating at maintenance, right? So you may want to go from 1,000 to 1,250 to 1,400 to 1,550 to 1,750, and then you're going to get up to 2,000, right? So step number 1 is eat at your maintenance, right? And regardless whether you have to slowly build it up and give yourself a bit more time, just making sure you get comfortable eating at your maintenance first is super, super important, right? Builders need to build a foundation under the house so when they build the house can stay up. If they just built the house without building a foundation in the ground, then the house will collapse. You need to make sure you're consistent at eating at maintenance calories before you start eating in a calorie surplus, right? So the other things that I want you to do in this building phase, let's say, is you want to just make subtle dietary changes, right? The big mistake that a lot of people make is that they go from eating whatever they're eating and then the next day they have a completely different diet and they just try to stick to it every single day, right? Again, Why would builders build the house before building the foundations beneath? Slowly make changes, right? Why would professional athletes go straight from their off season to their competitive season without doing any training in between to get them back up to their fitness, right? So just make subtle dietary changes, right? So, you know, if you haven't currently got a very protein rich diet, just slowly, you know, have an egg with a bit of toast, and then have 2 eggs and 3 eggs and 4 eggs, right? Or if you're not necessarily including many fats in your diet, right? Get an avocado in there, or just, you know, slowly make additions. Don't rush things. Just slowly do it over a period of time, right? That is how you build up consistency and sustainability to crack the code for weight gain, right? So whilst you're eating at maintenance or working up towards that, and you're making these subtle changes to your diet, the other thing that I want you to do, right, is get consistent at eating at the same times every day, right? Build a routine, a schedule where you have your meals within the sort of the same half an hour periods every single day, right? And the reason why I encourage this so much on my channel and to you guys watching is because this is how you gain consistency, and this is how you sort of get like this is how you spike your appetite, right? This is how you control your appetite. So many people say they don't have an appetite to eat. It's because they're not doing this. Start eating at the same times every day, and your body's going to start to recognize these patterns. And the ghrelin hormone we all have, which is basically the hormone that sort of like stimulates appetite, will release at the times we're meant to eat, because it's picked up the patterns and it knows when we're meant to be eating. So like, I'm eating my lunch right now in my current routine at 2 p.m. every day, right? I guarantee you around half one, quarter to two, I'm going to start to feel very, very hungry, right? And that's absolutely perfect, because that is when I'm meant to eat, right? Which just makes things a whole lot easier for you, right? The likelihood of you eating your food and, you know, finishing your portions is going to be higher. Eating more calories is going to be higher. You're probably going to be eating in a surplus before you know it, right? So just sort of look at your routine and look at when you can eat your meals throughout the day, right? If you're working from 9 to 5, have meal 1 at like 7:30 before you leave the house. Or if you have a lunch break at 1, have your meal 2 then, right? Or, you know, if you finish work at 4 or 5, have your meal 3 then before you go to the gym. Stuff like that, right? And the final thing that I want to get into in terms of step 3 is find your meals, right? Find the meals you enjoy to eat. Obviously, you don't want to be eating shit like McDonald's and stuff. You can have that every now and then. However, find your meals, right? Because, you know, the majority of people alive have a rotation of meals they eat day to day, right? On just a normal day. Find those meals, right? Because, you know, if you actually enjoy those meals, then you're going to be excited to eat them. Therefore, it's probably going to be easier to eat them. Therefore, you're probably going to be in a calorie surplus, right? You don't want to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli because bodybuilders say to eat that, but you don't enjoy that, right? What you enjoy is the most productive and the most effective for you, right? So, if you enjoy to eat pasta and meatballs, eat pasta and meatballs. If you enjoy to eat eggs, avocado, bagels, orange juice, like I did, right, my bulk, eat that for your breakfast, right? Have the old pizza every now and then, right? Pick some cheat meals as well. You know, enjoyment is the most, probably one of the keys to consistency, right? And if you don't enjoy something in life, why on earth would you do it? And why on earth would you eat foods that you don't enjoy? We don't live long enough to do that, right? So just do stuff that you enjoy and eat the foods that you enjoy, right? And that is step 3 done, right? So in order to slowly build in this 2 to 4 week block, right, you just want to obviously work up to or start eating at maintenance, get comfortable at that, and slowly increase the calories as you go. Make subtle changes to your diet. So as I just said, if you haven't got a protein rich diet, add a chicken breast to your meal, or add an egg, right? Or add a bit of tuna, right? Stuff like that, or add a steak, right? Slow and steady wins the race, as the old tale goes, with the snail and the hare. Snail and the hare? Oh my god, what, the turtle in the hair, the tortoise in the hair, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. The next thing, obviously, get into a consistent eating routine, right? Look at your day to day. When can you, you know, fill in slots for cooking your meals or eating your meals every day, right? And the final thing is find your meals. Find the meals you enjoy that are healthy, highly calorific, and obviously productive for the bulk. right? So that is step 3 out of 4 to how you are going to crack the code with your weight gain struggles. And once you have done this, you should have trained your appetite up to be able to eat more food, and you should be able to stomach more food, and you should be in a good routine, and you should have made some decent changes to your diet. Step number 4 out of 4 is starting to eat in a calorie surplus, right? Just maintaining that consistency, making sure you're tracking your calories so you're not over or underestimating anything, right? And one more thing that I want to go over is that a lot of people think that they're eating in a calorie surplus. However, they're like, oh, I'm eating in a calorie surplus, but I'm not gaining weight. How's that possible, right? As I said at the start of the video, it is biologically impossible to gain weight without eating in a calorie surplus. Because if we don't eat in a calorie surplus and if we don't eat in a calorie surplus, then we're not going to have the calories to delegate towards weight gain and muscle gain because the rest of them go towards other processes, right? So if you're not gaining weight, you are simply not eating in a calorie surplus. And if you find yourself plateauing at any point, there are 2 things that I would highly suggest you do. One is take a few days off the diet, right? If you're getting burnt out and if you're getting a bit sick of the foods, take a few days off, eat whatever you want, right? And just sort of plan and yeah, make a new plan of action going forward. If you want to introduce any new regular meals, introduce them, right? The second thing that I'd highly recommend you do, and that I put into practice as well, is when I stagnate in weight, right? What I like to do is I like to give it 2 weeks and I add 150 calories onto my diet, right? That's not too much, that's not too little. We don't want to be making big jumps with our additions because we don't want to be eating too much to the point where the calories will just be useless and they'll just store as fat, right? So 150 calories, if you plateau, just add that onto your diet, give it 2 weeks and see if you gain weight. And if you don't, add another 150 calories, right? And that is the perfect way to sort of escape your plateau. And it has worked for me an absolute charm, right? And the reason why we want to do this is because we need to experiment, we need to iterate, because we need to know how our body works, right? It's all good looking at that calorie calculator. However, the calorie calculator a- appeals to the mass, not the individual. And what I mean by this is, it may say someone who's 72 kilos has got to eat 2,500, but if you're a regular tennis player or you're a regular swimmer every day, then you're going to be burning a lot more calories than 2,500, right? So you've got to be eating more. So I really hope that makes sense to you, and we have now reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you do want more help on these YouTube videos and you actually want more guidance from me to help you escape your weight gain struggles, then I have a free community that is going to be the top link in the description below. We've got almost 250 men in there exactly like you on the exact same journey, wanting to break free from their weight gain or muscle gain struggles, where I basically teach them the fundamentals to gain weight and gain muscle in the most efficient way possible. By the time this video comes out, there will be some more exciting additions to the community, and it would be an absolute pleasure to have a one-to-one chat with you and get you steered in the right direction. So I would absolutely love to see you in there. However, if not, then if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you drop a like, leave a comment down below, and if you want to stay around, I upload every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, so a subscription would go a long way. So with that being said, thank you very much, have a good day, start making changes to your diet, and you are going to crack the code.